Welcome to the OK Let's Learn podcast. This is two podcasts in one. One where we dive into tons of great stories and books, and another where we just learn tons of different topics. My name is Kevin O'Keefe. So today, let's learn about multiple digit addition strategies. That's a mouthful. How about larger number addition? Different strategies to add larger numbers. That's all we're doing. And this is piggybacking on an earlier episode a while ago on one-digit addition strategies. Why am I doing this episode? For adults, it's never too late to learn. For kids, this is fundamental. I cannot stress how important this is to play with numbers, constantly practice adding numbers in your head. It's so important. Trust me, take it from me. I can't do this. And so much of the reasons that I'm sending these episodes out to the world is to make up for what I didn't learn early on. So a lot of my students and a lot of people out there don't make the same mistakes. I blame myself, but I blame a lot of the teaching. So what we will dive into is an early history of why we add numbers the way we do. And yes, look at the different ways that we can add 2- and 3-digit numbers, focusing on these. If you can add these, you will have a nice foundation on being able to use mental math, calculate numbers in your head. And trust me again, it's a lot tougher to do this the older you get. So let's begin with something that I think a lot of us rarely think about. Why do we count the way we count? Why does everything in math seem to revolve around tens? 10 ones make a 10. 10 tens make 100. 10 hundreds make 1,000. Why 10? The answer's pretty simple. We have 10 fingers. Way back when, the cavemen, the cavewomen, you can picture this. We had to count. And at a certain amount of time, these tally marks just became overwhelming. So long before textbooks, chalkboards, smartboards, we counted on our hands. 10 fingers gave us this way to organize numbers, items, objects. That became what we call the base 10 system. It simply means how many of something does it take before we bundle or group items and then start over. Isn't it simpler to count in groups? In this case, 10, 20, 30, instead of counting 30 individual objects, 1, 2, 3, 4, you can see just by that alone, being able to do something quicker, efficiently. In terms of counting, that's what we're doing here with math and adding. Now, just so you know, we call it the base 10 system because it's not just counting, and other fields don't always use this system. Computers, they don't count in tens, they count in twos. It's called a base 2 system. It's binary. They only use zeros and ones. Yes, and think about time. It works in base 60. 60 seconds before you bundle into 1 minute. 60 minutes before you bundle into 1 hour. So there's actually also in other computer coding systems, there's base 8 systems and there's base 16. But yes, we use 10 because of our fingers. So let's dive into the different ways that we can add multiple digit numbers. We'll start with 2, and we're going to play with 38. So if you'd like to follow along, get a piece of paper. We're going to play with 38 plus 23 in all these different strategies. So strategy 1, the first one, younger children, kindergarten kids, preschool, get them started early. We use what we call base 10 blocks, where we have a little tiny cube that represents 1. You put all of them together, 10 of them together vertically, one on top of the other, and that's what we call, frankly, just a 10 block. It's kind of like a little finger, a little French fry. Just have fun with it. Then you take 10 of those 10 blocks, put them horizontally together, and you have 100 block. What is that? You could basically, again, call it whatever you'd like, but it's like a square. So you have a square that's 100, a stick that's a 10, and then a little cube that's a 1. When you have these blocks, we call them in the business manipulatives. It took me so hard. I just had to practice saying that word. It's so hard to get that word out of my mouth. Anyway, they're like counters. Now I'm going to stop for a moment. Why is this so important? Because when you first start counting and introducing math, number 1, you got to make it fun. Number 2, you have to get the enthusiasm going. Too many adults, as I referenced in my earlier episode with 1-digit addition strategies, too many adults say, I'm no good at math. No, you're no good at a lot of things. But again, what have you done throughout your life? What have we all done throughout our life? We practice. We recognize our strengths and we run with them, but we also recognize the areas where we need to grow, and we push and we practice and we try to do better. Yes, we recognize our limitations, but we don't allow them to define us. And I'll get off my soapbox here, but now being a grandfather, and again, what I've learned, have a growth mindset. So if you're a young parent, you're just introducing these ideas to your kids. If you weren't the best in math, didn't enjoy math, don't carry forward that mindset. Don't carry forward that preconceived notion that, no, I can't do it, my kid's going to struggle with it. But yes, again, recognize that, part of ultimately what we have is our DNAs, and ultimately if you had trouble with numbers, then yes, maybe your child may have trouble with numbers, but again, embrace it, have fun with it. And one more point before we keep going, because we've just started. It's really important to understand the different types of learning that go on. When we're drawing this first, and this is my recommendation, when you're drawing it, when you're playing with it, touching it, using blocks to understand counting, this is when you're touching it, when you're moving it. These are kinesthetic learners, tactile kinesthetic learners to be exact. Here's the breakdown. People, all of us, kids or adults, learn in different ways. Getting to understand this and figure this out as early as you can help so much. There are visual learners where you need to see it. There's auditory learners where you need to hear it. There's, like I said, kinesthetic learners where you need to do it or move it. And then, listen to this, there's tactile learners that need to touch it and physically play with something. When a child understands addition better by snapping together cubes, and yes, get Legos, no question, moving these sticks and these squares and these cubes together, physically bundling ones into a 10, that's a kinesthetic tactile learner. But it's important to understand, kids don't only learn one way. But when you introduce all these different ways, it strengthens their understanding. This is called multisensory learning. It's seeing it, hearing it, saying it, touching it. Yes, everyone has certain strengths and learn in different ways, but you're losing an opportunity by not introducing all these different ways to learn. Kids will latch on to the ones that work, no doubt. And adults, we're no different. This is definitely going to be a future episode because it's so empowering if you really understand how best that you learn. You can do your work better. You'll feel better about yourself, everything. But getting back to the addition strategies. That first strategy, in case you forgot, was using models, using manipulatives, drawing numbers out to get your solution. So back to 38 plus 23. You can use a number line, strategy 2. It turns the addition into movement. Start at 38, jump 20, land on 58. Then how many more do you need? 3. You land on 61. This strategy builds your number sense, not just the correct answers. It teaches distance, magnitude, and absolutely going forward, understanding the relationship between addition and subtraction and number families. 3, you start at 3. How many do you have to jump to get to 5? There's 2. Well, see that difference? See that space? If you go from 5 to 3, that space is still 2. So adding and subtracting are related, very important. So that's what a number line does. Not just obviously for 1 digits, but 2 digits, 3 digits. Strategy number 3, break both of the numbers apart. 38 becomes 30 plus 8. 3 10s, 8 1s. 23 becomes 2 10s, 3 1s. 20 plus 3. 30 plus 8 plus 20 plus 3. You add the 10s. 30 plus 20 is 50. You add the 1s. 8 and 3 is 11. So 50 plus 11 is 61. They also call this expanded form. But I will tell you this, I am not for all these fancy words, especially when you're teaching young children. The first one, draw it, play with it. Number 2, use a number line. And yes, with number 3, I prefer to call it, let's break apart both numbers into 10s and 1s. Break apart both numbers. So what's the 4th strategy? Break apart just one number. And by the way, with both of these strategies, there's this concept that we teach the kids called place value. When you're breaking apart the numbers, each digits are 0 through 9. Those are the only digits we have. Depending upon where each digit is in the number, its place determines its value. So since the 8 is all the way to the right, that's in the first place, that's the 1's place. So the value is 8. But since the 3 is the first digit to the left of the 8, the first digit to the left of the 1's place, it's in this 10's place. I end up playing with this and with the kids, and I say, wow, it's in the 10's neighborhood. So it's not 3, it's the digit 3, but since it's in the 10's neighborhood, since it's in the 10's place, the 10's spot, make up whatever you want. It's not 3, it's 30. This is what we call place value. This is how we teach the kids, and this is the basis of these strategies. Strategy 3 and 4. You use place value in strategy 3 to break apart both of the numbers, and in strategy 4, you use place value to break apart one number. Some math programs may call this decomposition, but you got to be kidding me. So 38 plus 23, when you break apart one number, you keep the 38 together, but you break the 20 into 20 and 3. So 38 plus 20 is 58. 58 plus 3 is 61. Very good. Simple, right? Strategy 5. This is a good one. Another big word. They call it compensation. It's got to be a better word than that. But nevertheless, I drill it into the kids. And a lot of kids take off with this because this is the pure mental math that I wish I was taught. Listen to this. The simplest way to do this and understand this, if you're doing 38 plus 23, change it into a different number, an easier number that you can add in your head. What number of the 38 and the 23 do you want to change or move to the nearest 10? The nearest 10 to 38 is 40. So when you're picking one of the two numbers, it's got to be the number that's closest, whether it's going forward or going back. But ultimately, going forward is so much easier to understand. So let's change 38 to 40. How did you do that? You had to add 2 to 38. So if you add 2 to 38, you got to subtract 2 from 23. So you change 23 into 21. So 38 plus 23 ends up being 40 plus 21, which again is 61. 40 plus 21, you can do that right away. So compensate. Change it into easier numbers to add. How about this name for strategy 5? Make it easier. Go to the nearest 10. Go to the nearest 100 if you're adding hundreds. Strategy 6. Add the tens first. This is called partial sums. Again, too big of a name, but nevertheless. Here's how we add the tens first. 38 plus 23. You do 30 plus 20. You write down 50. You want to have the numbers be vertical. If you're writing this down, put 38 on top and then 23 below it. Now, some of the older members of my audience, you may be saying, whoa, no, this is not what I was taught. But yeah, just think of it. If you're starting a math program, are you going to be adding the ones first? I don't know. I don't think so. It's so much easier to picture, and I was never taught this way. So 38 plus 23, you do 30 plus 20, that's 50. Then you do 8 plus 3 is 11. You add 50 plus 11, all going down vertically. Some places and programs call this the expanded algorithm. Again, get away from these big words. Just call this strategy. You want to call it partial sums because that's what's used all throughout the grades. That's fine. But how about just add the tens first? And then finally, strategy number 7, the one that's the traditional algorithm, the one that in my mind just say, let's add the ones first. But when you add the ones first, you've got this concept that you need to teach that's all about going back to our beginning, that our system is based on grouping tens. So when you add the ones, you have to regroup. This is a term that they didn't use when I was growing up. A lot of my audience, if the grandparents out there, carry. That's what we would just do. This is the way that we were taught, and very often the only way you were taught. But it's a lost opportunity, like I've said so many times, if you don't introduce the other ways to add. Yes, for some students, for some kids, they just want to go with one and stay with one. For them to understand it, this is how they need to do it. It almost confuses them by giving them too many choices. But like I said, there's plenty of different learners out there, and many kids benefit from the other ways of doing it. They see how our system works. If you just teach this one system, well, this is what you do. You add up the ones, and then if you have 10 or more ones, you need to carry 110 over into the tens place. They're just memorizing steps. And this can definitely hurt them in the long run because they don't understand how the system of counting and grouping and place value works. But nevertheless, this last strategy is add the ones first. And as I have fun with it, when you add the ones, if it's less than 10, then you just add the tens and you've got your answer. But when you add the ones, if you've got 10 or more ones, hey, you got a 10 that's in the ones neighborhood. It doesn't belong. You need to get them out of there. And you need to bring that 110 over into the tens neighborhood, the tens place. That's where he or she belongs, and the ones will stay in the ones neighborhood. The ones will stay in the ones place. Then you add up the tens, and you've got your answer. Hey, math is fun. It really is. So now if you're expanding this to 3-digit, nothing changes. We just simply bundle the hundreds as well. Hundreds with hundreds, 10 with tens, 1 with ones. The whole structure, everything is still the same. So to wrap up our podcast, in my previous episode on 1-digit addition strategies, I ranked what I thought were the most effective strategies. I'm not going to do that here. What I think is important is ultimately being able to capture these adding numbers in your head, doing mental math, really practicing that so often and getting out of writing it down and figuring it out. Our computers, long ago, calculators did this, and certainly today with artificial intelligence, the more that you can do in your head. And I will say this, as students go into 3rd grade, estimating becomes a huge skill set. And we know this as adults. So let's change 38 plus 23. What if you had to add 387 and 232? Again, your head just spins. So grab a hold and hold on tight to compensation. When you're estimating, you're not always going to have to be precise in an answer, but off the top of your head, if you can turn 387 into 400, right? So you added 13 to get there. Well, you got to take 13 away from 232. So in your head, you got to be thinking, that's like 400 plus 200 and change, right? So what is that? Yeah, the answer is 619, but unless your brain is a super calculator, I don't think most people's are. But can you say about 600 and change? Absolutely. So friends, thanks for staying with me on this journey, learning all about multiple digit addition strategies, how to add big numbers. Reach out to me at kevmok21@gmail.com. We have a Facebook page you can go to as well to keep up and connect with other listeners. And finally, always appreciate the reviews on Apple Podcasts or any podcast platform of your choosing. A nice rating and a review is fantastic. I love seeing them. So until next time, have fun and keep learning.